Over here you can see our new state-of-the-art NEL object tracker.
Dr. Atmos, question. What is a NEO?
Near-Earth objects. There are quite a few that we track. Most are harmless while others can get into a degraded orbit, putting them in the path of Earth.
What happens when one is on a collision course with Earth?
Great question. Some we can blast into smaller chunks, and others, well, we may need to try something different.
You mean for something like that?
Tour's over! My assistant will show you out.
Dr. Atmos, you better come see this.
I've never seen anything that large, and it's on a collision course with Earth.
That's not all. We are getting signals from it. It is some type of rogue planet not from our solar system.
How long until arrival?
Not sure, but it seems to be accelerating. You better call her.
I'm not sure Miria is ready. Perhaps we have no choice.
I'm ready.
You'll need to find a way onto the planet's surface. We detected many strange signals. Be careful and good luck to us all.
We first fly into the entrance of the planet. This is a high-speed run that ends with the battle with some type of defense system. It's pretty simple to beat. However, it establishes a key element of the game, which is frequent health. And that's needed because you'll take quite a bit of damage running around in this game. After this point, the game switches and presents the story of the planet. The native race lost the planet to a group of invaders. The last remaining Naju set up the self-destruct device to prevent the planet from spreading the invaders across the galaxy. However, they weren't successful, so it's up to the Guardian Legend, Miria, to finish what was started. To do that, you'll need to explore the world, gather warp keys to access all the corridors needed to set up the self-destruct devices. First, let's take a look at the player, and there's a lot going on, so we're going to have to look at several different aspects here. There's the in-game map. This shows you where you currently are. This makes navigating the labyrinth part of the game fairly easy. There's several ways to increase your attack damage. There's gun icons which can be found or obtained from mini-bosses or defeating corridors. There's only 4 guns, and that's really important since some enemies are very difficult to destroy without them, so you need those upgrades. There's also shields. They represent the kind of defensive level. You collect these from mini-bosses or defeating corridors, and you can find them in item boxes as well. You can only have 7 of these, however. The score isn't just for bragging rights, it also increases your level, which increases your health. This is a nice touch, as you can find blue landers that give you health, red landers that give you chips. Chips are used to power both the extra weapons, and there are several different levels of shot widening based on how many chips you have. The extra weapons can be found throughout the game and purchased with chips in other places. Each weapon has 3 levels of upgrades, which makes them much more powerful. My favorites are the fireballs, the lasers, and the lightsaber for those mini-bosses. Lastly, there are rapid fire upgrades which increase the rate of fire. There are several of these. However, it only allows so many shots on the screen, so extra weapons can reduce the amount of regular shots. The game is broken up into several different areas. The first area is what I'm going to call the central core. This connects all the other areas and houses several different shops. It's worth exploring at the first, to pick up the initial set of items and get familiar with how to navigate the map. There are also several information sectors that give clues on how to open up the corridors, which are not all straightforward. In this area, we're faced with creatures from the sea. The unkind ones, that is, like piranhas, sea plants. The sea plants remind me of the TV series The Outer Limits. At the end of the corridor, you'll find giant fishes, and some type of lobster, and a weed ball that spews nasty plant logs. We're going to see several of those. In the overworld, there are a few mini-bosses like crabs and kind of mutated crabs. By the end of this area, you should have a pretty good set of weapons to draw from. The next area is the jungle. There are several mini-bosses like worm wheels, at least that's what I call them. These are a real pain as they bounce around and generally right at you, so you can't dodge them very well. It's kind of a power struggle between who's going to do the most damage. I may have won a few times before I find the right combination of weapons. Sometimes it's better to skip them and come back when you have some upgrades. The corridors are filled with vicious plants and flying mushrooms, and some spewing plants and dinosaur things, and some space stuff. So kind of combine all those up and you've got this corridor. The bosses are another monster plant ball. These ones always stick out to me because in my younger days I remember spending a lot of time trying to beat them. The other boss is like a spaceship that kind of fades in and out. It's pretty simple to beat with some patience. Oh yeah, and then there's that dragon. It's not much of a threat, it's easy to just shoot down. There's also another ship, but this time it shoots large lasers. It's not very difficult, but it can be hard to dodge, since destroying the front end, the space debris lingers on the screen. On to the crystal area. The overworld is great, so I named it crystal area because of the theming of the corridors. There are several mini-bosses in this area, and some are easier to deal with than others. However, they're important because they give you some nice upgrades. The glowing color cubes, though, are just best dodged, as the weapons don't do much damage to them. The area is more maze-like than previous ones. Here, they'll try to kind of block your way and make you have to go a certain different directions, so you have to do a lot of backtracking in some cases. The corridors are filled with crystals that chase you around, volcanoes that erupt. The bosses are like they're squid-like creatures, screen laser ships. There's the red plant ball. None of them are too challenging except for the plant ball, of course. Those are always a bit of a pain. However, I was ready for the plant ball this time. I had an upgraded fireball, and if you get the fireball up to at least level 2, then it can start burning through those weed logs, which makes things much easier to deal with. The last corridor leads to kind of a metal fly boss. At least it looks like that to me. It's not very difficult, but it's annoying since you can only hit it when it's opening and shooting at you, so it takes a little bit more patience again to try to beat it, but it's doable. This area is alive with organic walls, like you're inside a type of beast. Inside the corridors are veins and a whole lot of eyes. They're all staring at you. The first boss I encountered was reminiscent of that defense system at the very first of the game. Except this time it's all eyes. It's interesting to look at, but it's not too hard of a boss to beat. The big challenge is the corridors before the boss. There's a lot of shot blockers and lasers that cause a lot of damage. I resorted to using the EC screen cleaners. Use them liberally as much as possible, because you can find items, you can replenish them, so just go ahead and just use them as needed. They're not too common to find them, but they're common enough that you can recharge and replenish them. You can store up to about 255 of them. The other challenge in this area is the eyeball monsters. They take a lot of hits. However, the laser weapons are quite effective if you have a couple levels. The bosses remind me of Smash TV because as you damage them, they kind of transform and they start to spew out more and more eyeballs. Just kind of like very Smash TV-like, let's just say. With the organic area behind us, we now travel to the last area, the desert. Everything here is hard to destroy. I really needed a weapon upgrade, really bad. I thought the mini-boss, which was a skull head, would give me a weapon upgrade. I tried so many times to beat it. However, the key to success was the heat-seeking fireballs, and a lot of dodging. Unfortunately, it just gives you a shield, which by this point, you're probably already at max levels. I found they gave about 10 shields out, and you only can have 7. The key here is to fly into the corridor at the entrance. Defeating this will give you an attack upgrade, and you're going to need it because going through that area to corridor 10 is very difficult. Near corridor 10, you'll have to fight a corridor boss as a mini-boss, which is kind of interesting. You'll fight that metal fly again. This makes it an extra challenge because there's not a lot of room to dodge in the area when it cuts the room off. But again, patience, you'll get through it. With the self-destruct now activated, it's time to leave the planet, so we're going to take a shortcut route near the first of the central core. Head to the corridor and prepare to fight a set of bosses. They go through a lot of the bosses that you've already gone through in the game. Once successful, you'll now fly away from the planet as it explodes. It's all over. Or is it? You find yourself flying back to Earth, but before you do, you run into the final boss. It has a lot of hit points. I've beaten the boss with the lasers before. However, sometimes you have to take a different road. Like sitting in the corner with the angled circles. The graphics are excellent, and there's large boss sprites. There's a variety of enemies and distinctive areas. This also boosts some of the fastest graphics on the NES. The space level comes in real fast, thanks to the NES's PPU. For this, I give the game an A. Music is also very good. There's a lot of great songs that have made a lasting impression, as I've seen from the remixes and the different various arrangements. The sound effects for the weapons also fit the visuals, and they provide good feedback for the attacks, which is helpful to determine if it's working or not. For this, I give the music and the sound effects an A. For gameplay, the planar controls are really quite good and reasonable, allows for pretty precise dodging, and especially in the shoot 'em up areas. Even though there's times when shoot up areas get quite busy and can definitely take a lot of damage. Sometimes the character feels a little slow in the overhead, making it hard to dodge here, especially some of the enemies move much faster than you do. The variety of weapons allows for experimenting for different situations. The rapid fire is very welcome, as it would be a pain to sit there and have to tap the button the whole time. You can just hold it down and you're shooting all the time. The gameplay for this is definitely an A. As far as the design, I love the fact that this is a kind of a multi-mode game. It has a couple different play styles, and this really makes this game stand out. First off, this is one of the best shooters on the NES, just by itself. However, you combine that with the exploration, the level ups, the various weapon upgrades. This puts the game on a whole new level. It's non-linear, the player's allowed to kind of choose their path to a certain degree, but kind of like others games in the genre, that you have to get keys or items to get into different areas. In the overworld, there's definitely some difficult spots, especially with some of the mini-bosses. However, since the enemies kind of fade in, which allows you to kind of skirt or dodge an area and kind of preventing some of the cheap shots. The levels are creative, and the theming of the different enemies kind of matches the area that they're trying to go for. There's little to no grinding in the game. You can just, as you play it, you'll pick up the items, you'll get the upgrades that you need without having to kind of spend a lot of time picking those up or farming them. The design makes this game stand out as one of the greatest for the NES. I'm giving it a definite S. Always explore the corridors. You want to get those upgrades. It'll make the game a lot simpler. The only exception to this is near the end. You want to hit that corridor 17 before corridor 10 to get that last attack upgrade. On the organic corridors, use those ECs, screen clears, to get through the enemies. This makes it a lot simpler, especially with all the shot blockers that are in those levels. Just use those, clear out the screen as you move along, and make it a lot simpler to get through. Yeah, use the ECs to stall when you're low on health, especially during the bosses. You might be able to clear things out. The password system was a bit of pain to write down, especially back in the day before it had emulators and save states and things. Those passwords, I remember writing them down when I was younger, trying to get them all right. You have the uppercase, lowercase, and all the little characters to try to get right. Because it's kind of a complex game and a complex password system, this has kind of led to some interesting quirks, let's just say. I remember trying random combinations and finding that you can end up kind of jumping into the game with different types of weapons and upgrades, and also sometimes you jump into random lost areas or areas that aren't in the regular game. The ending provides a TGL password that puts the game into a special mode. This is where you just fight just the bosses of the corridors. It gives certain upgrades as you kind of go along. This is a fun challenge just to see what you can do and how far you can go. There's also quite the guide to different lost worlds with the passwords. They'll take you to unknown locations that are oftentimes strange or broken. But you can check Game Facts to get more information on this. That'll be a fun project to go and see what levels and what things you can find with different password combinations. This game has always been one of my favorite NES games. It's such a favorite game that even some years ago I started working on a continuation of the game and making a sequel called Return of the Legend. Who knows, I may finish it someday. A good game is a good game even 36 years later. This one still holds up. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this game as much as I do, and it's one I definitely recommend.